So back in 2019, Pyrlabis revealed this sick looking MMO RPG called Crimson Desert, and everybody was like, wow, it looks super cool. But since then we haven't heard anything really about it, so I wanted to make sure that everybody was up to speed on what the game is and what the current situation is with the game. If that sounds good to you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. But let's get into exactly what's going on with this game. So I was super interested to find out what happened with Crimson Desert, because when the game was originally revealed, it looked kind of nutty to me, so I was interested to see how the game was getting on and when it was being released, because I swear it was meant to be out last year. But the word on the street is that the game's been delayed indefinitely. But there is a good reason for this one. They've basically taken the game back to the drawing board and they're respecing it from what it originally was intended to be, which was a open world MMO RPG, and made it more of a single player story driven action RPG. They've basically done this so that they can make the best possible game. And if you know Pyrlabis, you know that their other MMO, which is Black Desert Online. If this game looks familiar to you, that is probably why, because it looks very similar to a Black Desert game, and with it being Crimson Desert in the name as well, it looks like it was going to have like a similar kind of feel and vibe and being set in the same universe as Black Desert. But it looks like they've pivoted now and made this a single player story driven game to not compete with that game. But the game looks exciting, so let's explain some of what you're going to be getting up to in the game and make sure you guys are up to speed on exactly what the game is and what its new vision will be. So now that the game's been respec'd, Pyrlabis are focusing on making sure that this game is as ambitious as possible. And one of the ways that they're doing that is by making sure that the combat system is as engaging and tactile and awesome looking as possible. You're going to see in the background some of the gameplay that's going on. I think it looks awesome. I like the way that it looks like there's a depth of the combat system in the way that there's combos that flow into each other. The animations look like you can actually grab somebody and like drop kick them, or just like power drive them or DDT them and just do some crazy WWE wrestling moves on them. So it looks absolutely awesome in that regard. One of the interesting things that they're actually doing is trying to make the world as beautiful as possible and as varied as possible. And this is trying to contrast with this story, which is going to be super gritty and gory and bloody and kind of just like that Game of Thrones-esque world where you don't know what's going to happen next. And what they're doing is basically making sure that the world has different biomes and different environments. So there'll be towns where NPCs are roaming around doing their thing. There's an actual place called the Crimson Desert in Crimson Desert, alongside biomes such as snow and like the forest area, and all these areas that they've shown in the trailers look very detailed and very good and aesthetically pleasing. And that's what they're trying to produce, an aesthetically pleasing world that contradicts and kind of makes a contrast between the story, which is going to be super gritty, which is super interesting. So the devs have basically set the scene of what the story is going to be, and the main story follows a character called Macduff, who is a mercenary. Alongside Macduff is going to be a whole party of mercenaries that you take along with you, and we've seen some of the interactions in the gameplay where he's throwing him into other NPCs who are doing combos and doing all of that stuff, and we've seen cutscenes of the other NPCs that we're actually going to have in our party, which is pretty interesting. The devs have actually said that they're trying to make sure that Macduff isn't your traditional hero and has this kind of maturity over the game and has that kind of character growth and arc. So yeah, that is generally what's happened with Crimson Desert. It's been rescoped to an action RPG. We do not have a release date at the moment. It's basically been delayed indefinitely. So it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. You guys can let me know what you're thinking. If you feel like it's never going to come out, if it was a fake game. There's a few people out there saying that this game doesn't actually exist and it was kind of just a pitch to get people excited. But with the amount of kind of gameplay that we've seen in the initial trailers, I don't think this is necessarily the case. I just feel like maybe the MMO part of this game was a bit too ambitious of what they were trying to do, and it kind of conflicted with the company as a whole, so they had to respec it. But we'll have to see what this game lands like when it actually comes out and we actually get a date. Hopefully that's this year. Anyway, guys, bye bye.